Kendall, looks like Dan Ashworth is going to be leaving Newcastle potentially and joining Manchester United. What was your initial reaction to that news?
Obviously, it's a little bit disappointing because you want someone who's going to be there long term. You know, this project that we're undertaking since the takeover is supposed to be long term. It's supposed to be something that we're still working on and things like that. So obviously, it's disappointing, especially to lose someone really important and integral who was supposed to be integral to that project. So to one of your, I guess everyone in the league's a league rival, but these are the type of teams, Manchester United and things like that, who we would be as Newcastle United looking to kind of emulate and, you know, get onto the level that they have been historically. So yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, but football is a ruthless game, I'm afraid.
That's absolutely right. And how would you rate your recruitment over the last few seasons then with Ashworth in charge?
So actually, I think this is a little bit of a myth-busting situation because there has been a lot of reports that, you know, Ashworth was integral in kind of signing Bruno right at the beginning and Trippier, and actually wasn't actually with us officially at that point. Whether or not he worked behind the scenes on those deals, we're not too sure. But he was supposed to be on garden leave at this point. So realistically, the only actual deal that I may think he's had some kind of heavy hand in is maybe Isak. Because Botman, we did initially try to get him in the January that we tried to get Bruno. But Lille weren't playing ball with us at that time. So yeah, I'm not actually too sure how much of a hand he's had in it. Similarly to Brighton, I know he was kind of lauded as being involved in the recruitment, but I think a lot of it is Tony Bloom. So, but if he has had a hand in it, look, we've recruited fantastically in terms of personnel. I think January was a little bit disappointing. We could have maybe done a little bit more last summer, but again, we're hampered so much by FFP and all of the things and profits and sustainability. So yeah, I think overall the recruitment that we've done in the last 2 years has been really phenomenal. So if he's had a hand in that, then yeah, absolutely no complaints from me really. Just could have done a little bit more, but as I say, we are kind of handcuffed by a lot of financial things, I'm afraid.
Were you a bit gutted about that going into the window? Because I mean, obviously with all those injuries going into January, it sounded like you might be looking at making some moves happen. Then obviously it doesn't work out. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was quite disappointed coming into January just because I knew we needed some personnel in, we needed some quality in it back into the team because we'd been one of the teams that have struggled the most in the league. Don't get me wrong, obviously there's a lot of teams that have struggled this year with injuries, but we had 14 first team players out at any one time coming into, you know, the January window. So I just assumed at that point that it was kind of a necessity for us to get bodies in at that time. But yeah, because our owners and people at the club, you know, the commercial directors, Darren Eales and things like that, they've been very open with how hampered we are by these things. So it was kind of tempering fans' expectations. You know, he did a interview right at the beginning of the window where he said, don't expect too much because there is a lot of really serious restrictions going on right now. Obviously doesn't help with the point deductions and things and investigations. So yeah, but I was a little bit disappointed because we're now again back at square one because Callum Wilson's now out between 9 and 12 weeks, which we just found out today. So yeah, it's kind of we're one step forward, 2 steps back with us. But yeah, hopefully we're gonna have a big summer and maybe see some changes in those rules that allow us to build on the squad a little bit more.
I mean, speaking of that, how hard do you think it is going to be to replace someone with the caliber of Ashworth? Do you think that'll be an easy recruitment process?
Do you know what? I'm not too sure because in the past we didn't even have a sporting director. Like under the previous owner, we didn't have anyone who even did the role that Dan Ashworth does at all. It was 2 people running the show. That was it, did all of the jobs. So when we got someone in who actually understood football, who was well appreciated and respected within football, really had a big hand in the England setup and with the FA and did fantastically at Brighton. Obviously, everyone was so happy with that recruitment. We were like, wow, this is amazing. We finally got someone who actually understands football at the club, who can run the club properly. And obviously at the moment, he's done a fantastic job. But in my opinion, just from where I'm standing, I think probably very few people in football are irreplaceable. I think you can always find someone, even at player level, you know, who can do a job or similarly to that. Because I don't understand his role specifically in depth. Maybe that's where my opinion's coming from, that I feel like, you know, we can go out and get another sporting director who can do what he does, but that might not be the case. But obviously we're going to see if this transfer goes through to Manchester United. Then we will obviously see if someone can come in and emulate that. But, you know, there's some brilliant sporting directors on the surface, as far as I know, like Michael Edwards and things like that, and Paul Mitchell, who's been mentioned in the past. And so there is obviously people out there who do a good job, but maybe because I don't understand Dan Ashworth's role in depth, that may be why. But as I say, we'll see either way.
And are you concerned at all that United might try and sign some of your top players like Bruno Guimaraes? Is there a concern there that actually Dan Ashworth, knowing the contracts, knowing the length of deals that are happening, he actually might come in and try and take some of your top talent?
That is one of the things I have seen our fans worry about. I think we need to be ruthless as a club. If this is to happen, we need to say in any sort of kind of contract going forward, or any sort of where we're going to allow you to leave, you cannot sign our players for a certain amount of time. I'm not even sure if that kind of clause exists in football. I'm really not sure. But if it doesn't, then we need to design one, because he is privy to release clause information. He's privy to wage information, any sort of contract demands or wants and desires from these players. He's privy to all of that. So that would absolutely be a concern, because again, as our owners have said, you know, we're hampered by these rules. That may mean we need to get rid of these players in the future just to offset the financial rules. So yeah, obviously that would be a huge concern to lose to someone that we would want to see as, you know, rivaling to like cups and leagues and league places and things like that. So yeah, hopefully we can be now it's out the shoes on the other foot now. They tried to be a little bit with us with the Jesse Lingard thing a few years ago. So, you know, I hope we've got a little bit of
fingers crossed.
partner with them, and we say we play hardball this time.
And what are your hopes the rest of the season? I mean, you've mentioned in there Callum Wilson being out for 9 to 12 weeks, 7th in the league, 11 points off top 4. What would be a success for you to end this season?
European football at any opportunity, conference, I'm absolutely fine with this season. I think the way that we were competing on all fronts coming up to, you know, December, and disappointingly went out of the Champions League due to kind of no real fault of our own, with obviously the PSG game and VAR and things like that, and then the Carabao Cup, which was really, really disappointing because we got to the final last year. I'm happy with, you know, getting to any sort of European football this year, whether that be Europa League. I think maybe Champions League is a little bit far out of reach at the moment. I know we're still half the way through this season. We've still got a good chunk of games to go, but I do just think with our squad, with the injuries and things like that, then maybe that's not viable. But I think European football still is. We've still got a long way to go. And I would really, really like to do well in the FA Cup. I said at the beginning of the season, prior to injuries, signings, I said European football and a good cup run. So we are still on course for that. So yeah, top 7, and hopefully a good, decent cup run. Another final will be nice, but I'm not sure I can handle losing 2 finals in a row.
Going to Wembley again.
I'll temper my expectations a little bit with that one.
And how about Eddie Howe? What are your thoughts about him going forwards? Are you happy with him in charge, or actually do you think he is more of a stopgap manager?
No, I'm really happy. I've said this all along. Even before, you know, we had such a successful season last season, I said I wanted him to be the one to you know, have success with us, and I think he deserves it for the way he's built the squad. I think he deserves it for the style of football that he's brought to Newcastle United that we've not seen for, well, everyone always relates it kind of to the entertainers era in the mid-90s. We've not seen football this good from us, and this style of quality football, attacking football, since then. So yeah, I'm happy with Eddie. I think he needs his time. Obviously, you know, there's hiccups along the way, maybe tactical subs changes that maybe we won't agree with, and the good thing is, though, he's always loyal to his team. He's open with the fans, and he just understands what the club kind of means to us as Newcastle fans. So yeah, I'm more than happy for Eddie to stay, unless it's an absolute capitulation and it's like back to, you know, Newcastle fighting relegation. Yeah. Then yeah, I'm happy with Eddie for as long as we have him. And
do you think that is the general consensus around the ground? Are most fans happy, do you think, or are there small minorities here or there that aren't so pleased?
Yeah, I think sadly with football, it's so polarising. You're always going to get a certain amount of people who don't agree. But yeah, I think 99% of Newcastle fan base is behind Eddie. You know, every single home and away matches, we're always there. We're always behind him. And I think the good thing about us as fans, our expectations change obviously with the takeover and how well we have done, but we are quite patient, we are quite level-headed. I can't believe I'm saying that, and a lot of people will laugh, a lot of Newcastle fans, but in the general sense, we are quite level-headed. So I think as long as we know that you're passionate about this club, which most of the players and the manager definitely is, then we're behind you all the way. And I think most of the fan base back them 100%.
And are you concerned at all going into the summer window? I know we mentioned Bruno Guimaraes in there, but actually with Eddie Howe in charge, do you think they buy into his sort of, they buy into his mantra, they buy into his philosophy? Is that one reason why the squad has been so united?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you watch any sort of interview with any Newcastle players, they always mention the manager. I mean, Fabian Schär, for example, he is 32, 33 years old. And he said Eddie's the best manager that he's ever had in his career. Obviously, I know you're not gonna slate the manager when you're at a club, but just the fact that they're not prompted to say these things, they say it just in terms of how well their career's going at the moment and how well they are playing. So I think the fact is Eddie is a really, really good manager. The fact that he's a good young English manager, which we don't see a lot of, sadly in the Premier League, despite it being, one of the best leagues in the world. I think, it really is good for him, and all of the players like that, all of the fans buy into it, and he buys into the club and the philosophy. So we couldn't ask for any more, really.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.